All right, we're back. Sports. Well, we still don't have a really good name for this, Mark. I'm TW. This is Mark. Jerome. We're talking sports and politics and culture. I don't know. What do you want to call it?
I don't know, I was thinking about that this morning until I got interrupted by a 4.8 earthquake.
You know,
Just
how was that? Did you feel it?
vibration. Felt like a 7 second vibration. And I was just like, whatever. Right? And then I thought, oh, I wonder if that was an earthquake. Nothing like what you're used to in the Bay Area.
I mean, when I usually I'm the same way. When one kind of hits, it just feels like, hey, is someone shaking the bed or is someone shaking whatever thing you're in? Is what you think. Especially I've had a couple early in the morning he's shaking. I'm like, is there construction outside? And then by the time you figure it out, it's over. But I know Taiwan had a 7.9 and 7.4 back to back. That looked way more violent than anything obviously I've been through. So but 4.8, that's not small, especially on the East Coast. It's not built for that.
Well, I know. So, of course, everybody's texting each other and calling each other, whatever, make sure everybody's okay. And tell everybody just be careful because maybe there's something, there's going to be an aftershock or
Yeah.
just a, maybe debris falling from buildings. I don't know. I mean, I can't remember one up that level or that range recently until maybe 6, 7 years ago, which I'm not even sure what I felt. But 4.8, like it was either I thought someone was like banging on the ceiling above me in my
Yeah.
apartment,
Yeah.
and then it continued, and I was like, oh wait a minute, that might be. So it wasn't like it wasn't that influential, but it's still like, wait a minute, oh, it's a little scary. Right? And then also thinking about my child, my 3 year old, like making sure he's okay.
Right.
My first thought. So, but fortunately, everybody cool. So we move on. We march on. There's some other things to be worried about in New York City. So I had earthquakes, unfortunately. Oh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Crazy. So what do we got this week? What
all right, let's tackle women's basketball. There's so much to talk about women's
I know,
basketball.
isn't it?
Let's tackle the darlings of the NCAA tournament, the men's side, and maybe women's too. And that's something if you saw the article in the LA Times
Yep.
describing the UCLA game versus LSU, the Dirty Debutantes versus the Sweethearts. And then let's talk about I don't know, the male tournament, like how the state of college basketball, men's college basketball versus the
Yeah.
state of women's college basketball.
Yeah.
But let's hit it. I've never been invited to a women's watch party, NCAA watch party, Final Four watch party. Today, this morning, I was.
Yeah, big
Uh, hey,
games.
let's watch women's college basketball. That I'm having a party. What? Awesome! It was great.
It's amazing.
Did you watch the LSU Iowa game?
I was in Vegas. I watched a little bit of it. I can't say I was glued to the TV, but I knew it was on and I wanted to watch it. It's just one of those things that were out and about, so um, I couldn't
But
watch.
you,
But yeah,
but you were in Vegas for a specific reason to go to an event,
yes,
so you have an excuse.
yeah. But normally I would have. I mean, like tonight we're tuned in. We're not doing like we literally circled it on the thing tonight. We're not doing anything. We got to watch these 4 hours. We need to watch these games, and there was no argument from my family. Like, yeah, for sure, we need to watch Don Stanley. We need to watch Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers go Final Four.
That's how it was all week. This on last Monday, prior to the game Monday night, like during the weekend, I was like, "Oh man, I got something to look forward to after my work on Monday night." Like
Yeah,
it was great, like having this anticipated feeling of being able to watch quality, real quality basketball of some really, really, really good players.
yeah, it's awesome.
That's it was great. And so the game seemed by was set the record for the most watched game on ESPN ever, right? Over 12 million
12
viewers,
million.
which was phenomenal, right? I'm fortunate to say that I was able to be one of those 12 million. There's so many good pieces to that game, and the level of play, which has evolved tremendously. I mean, not everything is perfect, and but Caitlin Clark is some special player, and it was just like a really good game, right? No matter who you're rooting for, it was a great game. the when you bring in other pieces and other components into the game, right? Like it's a little polarizing, right? You had white Iowa versus black LSU, and black LSU coached by a white who's already who has there are reports, and I was looking for it. I can't find it. It could be true. Reports of her being a MAGA,
Really?
right? Yeah, yeah, and anti-gay, but I don't know if that was from years ago and she's maybe shifted. But then there was the story, one story I read. So none of the four Final Four teams that I'm aware of. I know LSU didn't. I know Connecticut and South Carolina did not warmed up or stood up or were out on the court during the national anthem.
Interesting.
Yeah. So coincidence or was it strategy, right? I don't know. And we'll get back to that in a second. But when you talk about, I don't know what her, and I can't find it no matter what. I can't find Kim Mulkey's political background. I don't know. I was looking and I was typing in his Mulkey a Trump, MAGA. Is she a Trump supporter? Who is she? You know, all that stuff. There were reports that say she basically had a policy of don't ask, don't tell about her players being gay years ago, which now I don't know, you know, what her stance is. And I don't know, what the policy is for her versus other schools. There was a poll that came out in the Athletic, I think it was the Athletic that talked about that mentioned who players want to play for. What coach? You know who number one was?
Don Staley.
Yep, by far, landslide.
Yeah.
The Kim Mulkey was way down the list. I think there were two people who reported it out of I think the number may have been 100 people that were polled. And so I don't know what that has to do with. I don't know if it's to do with her policy. I don't know if she's like someone you can talk to. I don't know. And I don't know her, but I have read the article. I don't know if you read the article in the LA Times
I did.
criticizing her. And then, of course, the scathing article in the Washington Post that she says was a scathing article, but other people are like, it wasn't really that bad.
Right.
Right. And I guess it depends what your perspective is. And I think, in addition to her taste in clothing, just certainly
He's
fashion
loud.
sense. Her fashion sense is certainly courageous. You got to at least give her that,
Yeah,
right?
very,
Whether
very
it's
loud.
taste is another question. And people in the fashion industry may be cringing every time she wears something, but other people might be like, dude, that's courageous, right? Is she receiving the same kind of flack if she's a male coach, a coaching men?
Yeah, that's a hard one
I
because
don't
they're
know.
the men's game is just in such a different place than the women's game, so it's kind of hard to compare. But yeah, I
So
don't know. That's hard to say. I would say definitely not because they shouldn't be treated the same at this point.
here's one for you, T Dubs. I got an email from somebody who listens to us on our UVA podcast
Uh-huh.
and our pregame and halftime and postgame show, and said basically was saying how gross it is for the women to talk trash, be really competitive, and play the way they play in that competitive spirit. It
That's
was a little bit more than that, right? And then I
huh.
read another, and then the article came out like 2 days later after he wrote me that email saying what a double standard
Yeah,
men's versus women's is.
right,
And so I got the email. I was really upset because I like the guy, and I was like, really?
right,
And the email dripped of sexism and racism. And I was like, dude, why would you write this? Like, are you serious? And I guess he is, 65-year-old dude. And it was disheartening and disturbing and really unfortunate. And so why can't women be competitive and show their emotions and like stand up for themselves and be super competitive, as competitive, if not more competitive than men? Why can't they?
Right. Doesn't make much sense.
Maybe, maybe they're not, I don't know. I guess it's not ladylike, but it's strange that someone would judge. It's not strange, right? It's typical. Um, it's unfortunate that someone would make that, and it's a double standard, right? So men can show their emotion and dunk on somebody and talk trash and fight, and women can't. Right? But I grew up differently. Grew up in an Arab neighborhood where my sister was beating people's ass. She was my protector
Right.
when she was beating boys up. So um, I don't know.
I
Uh,
mean, I, one thing that's sort of like this prevailing thought of mine is if you just don't think about the notion that we're all created equal, all of that, I mean, that's jargon. If you just put that aside and just accept everybody's differences, it just helps get over this thing, right? Like for me anyway, because I'm like, hey, we aren't the same. They can have babies, we can't. That's natural. Things are different. They're not as that's why we separate things. It's okay to have a different, set of standards for them than for us. I'm kind of just okay with it at this point. Expectations for them is different. That's fine. Like just take it as a different game, and go with it. But yeah, why they can't be competitive makes no sense to me. It's like, I mean, it's a
it
sport
is a
after all.
It is. There are differences, no question.
Yeah,
Women can have, right? At least men can't. At least right now. Who knows in 5 years, right? Who knows?
that is true. We don't know that, but yes.
But why? It's amazing that people are grossed out by competitive women. It's puzzling. It's mind-boggling.
I will say, I mean, obviously I have a daughter. Both of us we have raising girls. We know the difference, but there are little instances where I think I saw one of the after the players, um, whatever the trophy ceremony in the Final Four. I think one of the girls in the interview was said something like, "Bro, I don't know," and that for whatever reason, I was like, "Why is she saying it like that?" I don't like. For me, it took me back a little bit, but I was like, "Yeah, whatever. It's basketball." But still, I just thought that was strange that she's referencing bro or dude to another girl. I just thought that was strange, but it is what it is.
That's that's talk, though. That's how girls talk. A lot,
Yeah,
not all girls. That's how some girls talk.
yeah,
Whether they're homosexual, heterosexual.
yeah,
I hear it all the time.
yeah.
Girls calling each other bro.
No, my daughter does it too to her friends. I just like why is that a thing? But I guess it's just because we're in a male dominated society and those terms become more prevalent and like you're gonna accept them. You hear them and you'll use them in your own way.
When you look at the root of it,
Yeah.
it's right. We're in a male world, right? And
Yeah.
so they're not, guys aren't saying, "Hey, girl," to each other.
Right. Maybe one day. Maybe one
Some
day.
guys, some guys might be right.
Yeah, that's true. It's not as
Some,
common.
but for the most part, like most guys aren't saying, "Hey, girl."
Right.
Right? And for the people that say, "Hey, girl," that's their business. Like, okay, but when you look at the root of it being a male dominated society, yes. And when you look at, it's slang that travels. Slang
Yeah.
travels. It
Yeah.
started in the East
Totally.
Coast, West Coast, Midwest, wherever. It's going to travel, and like you're hearing about East Coast words
Yeah, those days
started
are gone.
originated East Coast maybe in 6 months, half a year, 2 years, and I was back and forth. I was bi-coastal when I was little, to some extent, because we moved from San Francisco to New York,
Right.
and go visit, and we were using some words that they hadn't had yet,
Right.
right? Vice versa,
Right.
right?
I feel
Like
like the that window is shortening now with the internet. Like language definitely travels much faster.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I remember like hearing hella in San Francisco or the West Coast for the
Yes.
first time. I was like, what? I had never heard that in New York City,
Yes. When I
and
first
now
moved here in 99, I learned that term fast because all my friends out here that I met all said it. I started saying it. And then when I went back east, people were like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. It's just some slang that everyone uses out west.
yeah,
And now
and
it's
now
everywhere. Now everyone says it.
And just like when you talk about, and for a basketball term, when people would say he's got handles, first time I heard handles with plural was in on the West Coast in California. I was in Marin County at my cousin's house, and we went to the park to play ball. And someone was talking about it was like a former UCLA coach there playing or whatever. And they were talking about, and I was like, handles, what the bogus? His handle, actually handle, right? His handle's nice, right? Something like that. That's what we said in the East Coast. And now people I see here, more people on the West Coast, on the East Coast saying handles. I'm like, no, no, well, it's handle, right? It's handle's tight.
No, that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But getting back to the women's game, 12 million viewers. Now, why are there 12 million viewers watching the women's game? There was an article that came out a couple of years ago saying that the number of girls playing basketball has significantly reduced, right? And
Right.
girls playing sports in general.
Right.
But this is the first time, and I was having this conversation with my son Kobe, who I think I mentioned last week or the week before, plays at Delaware. And when they were in the Bahamas over over Thanksgiving earlier this year, everybody went to go see Juju Watkins play from USC
Right.
because they were playing right before Delaware, the women's USC team, where they're playing. And then when Delaware took the court, whoever they were playing, everybody left. All the fans left, right?
Right.
So that's a clear indication that women's basketball is on the rise.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just women watching basketball, the Elite Eight game at LSU, clearly, right? Iowa
No,
game.
definitely not.
I spoke to Kobe. He said his whole house was watching. He and all his teammates were watching.
Yeah.
I was watching. My apartment was watching. Right? A lot of people were watching that. Clearly, it was the most watched game ever. But I don't know if it means that more girls are playing. But hopefully, this is more girls are now going to be picking up basketballs instead of their cell phones to go on Instagram, and they're going to be practicing on a court instead of practicing their TikTok dance. Oh, if I see one more TikTok dance, I probably sound like my father now.
No, I think for sure that it's going to inspire some kid because it's one of those things like, I think the Steph Curry comparison makes sense, right? It's like she's not super tall or strong or anything. You look and you're like, hey, if she can do that, if she can shoot like that, that gives me hope. Maybe I should go out there and try to pretend to be her. It's really cool. I think it's great. Like now people are like, hey, it doesn't matter who you are. If you can shoot, you can shoot, which, you know, I'm assuming I haven't played on the playground in a while, but back when I was a kid, if you were a girl and you stepped on the playground, it was different. I'm assuming today it's not. I don't know. I hope that's the case, but um a little more accepting today. Like if you're a girl that's good, people aren't gonna care. But maybe that's not true. I don't know.
So I still don't see. I don't play in playgrounds. I haven't played in playgrounds in a long time. But
Right.
I every once in a while I'll train somebody kid on a playground, usually in gyms. But and when I do, I still don't see many women or girls playing outside.
Interesting.
It's rare, but every once in a while you see one. Not that I'm not at the parks that often because I'm not. So, but it, or if I'm driving past the court, I don't see many co-ed games. And now I think the other thing is now there's so many co-ed leagues or women's leagues for adults,
Right.
right? People don't have to go outside to the park and play, and you're
Right.
much in a more safer, controlled area, right? With referees and it's organized, and you can pick who you want to play with your friends versus having to go deal with some jerk who's going to make some comment or treat you differently or play pick up basketball just in general instead of being in a controlled environment where you can play with your friends.
Right.
Pick up organized pickup run in the gym.
Yeah,
So
I think it's just fans of basketball are now watching the women's game. It's not necessarily more women or more. I think it's just like, hey, some people that watch the NBA, some people that watch college, they're all coming together and now watching the women's game in college
and it's
anyway.
evolved. It's evolved tremendously.
Absolutely.
So you just mentioned something that's one of the topics I want to raise too. You just said that, and maybe the college game only. Will Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese add to the NBA and the WNBA because it's starting to? I think it's starting to do a little better. I don't watch it because it's in the summer mostly, and I'm just always
Right.
crazy and busy. In the summertime, it's outside in New York City. There's always stuff going on, so I don't go to games. But I know people that go to games. So will they be like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, right?
Well,
That say, I mean, it's not saving it, but maybe if they have tremendous, if they elevate the game,
right.
people are going to watch.
For
And the
sure.
more players that come into the WNBA, the more exciting they are. People are going to watch.
I think there are definitely going to be people that follow their careers into the WNBA. A percentage will. There will be I think the vast majority like the idea of college kids, so to speak, rooting for kids. Playing the game at this high level is more impressive than like someone who earns a huge paycheck to play the game probably doesn't feel as, I don't know, pure, maybe. I don't know. But I do hear that a lot. And like, hey, I just like it because the nature of it's college kids, and I was in college, and seeing them do their thing is really really fun. So I'm guessing a lot of people watch it for that piece, the amateurism. Um, but then we'll see. I think a lot of them will graduate to the WNBA though, at least playoff time for sure.
No, I think people are going to want to know where Caitlin Clark is
Yeah,
drafted, where he's drafted. They're going to be
yeah,
like, they're going to, right? And if it can raise the level, we're going to watch. You just said amateurism, which I'm not sure we can really call it that anymore because you're making
yeah.
kind of
With
money.
NIL, it's not really amateurism, but still.
Absolutely. Um, Real quick, speaking of NIL, and I want to go back to the women's game again and talk about two things for the women's game. AJ Stores from Wisconsin asked Kansas for $1 million,
Right.
and apparently they offered him 750, and he's like, nope.
Yeah. Get a mill. He wanted a mill.
Okay, some people are going to say that's crazy, and others, including me, are going to be like, get what you get that bag.
Right.
Why not? What sets this industry different than any other industry?
Yeah.
In this industry, at least he's making so much money for the schools. Why shouldn't he get his share?
No, I agree. I think I've had this argument with a friend of mine who thinks that NIL and all this stuff is ruining college basketball. And my argument was that's it's changing it for sure. But like a coach can have an incredible run in the NCAA tournament, leave and cash in. Why can't a player? It's only fair. Like I understand that whatever you're rooting for your team and it sucks, but you can be on the other side of it too, right? Where now you've got an influx, you got a great coach and a bunch of great players that come to your school. So you can't to me, it's just like we all have to adapt. Let's not all hang on to this old notion of non for profit. These are student athletes that after the game they go and do a paper. Like that's not happening anymore. Like it's just not. So let's just own up to it. Like this is an opportunity for them, and let's embrace it. Like that. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Can we come back to that? Because I want to finish two things about the girls, and then
Yeah, for sure.
I want to discuss that because that's huge, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of components and layers to that. Two things I want to talk about with the women's game, especially that LSU and Iowa game.
Hmm.
I know you didn't see it or most of it, so I know you may not have felt that. But as someone who sees the world differently than I do, sees the world differently than a lot of people, because I know I see the world differently than a lot of people are reminded of it frequently. I felt like it was the game. It was somewhat polarizing, right? And I don't know if you felt that. You had Iowa, and you had LSU, and you had what the LA Times called the it was actually referred to when UCLA I think played LSU or whatever, the dirty debutantes of LSU and the sweethearts of UCLA, and then I think you had the same thing with Iowa versus LSU, right? And like I was certainly offended, and he apologized and said, you know what, I missed that there was probably racism and sexism in making those comments against LSU, and there certainly are.
Yeah. Right.
And my issue with Kim Mulkey is she never addressed. She said there was sexism. She never said anything about racism. Like, do you have? And I'm going to say do Kim Mulkey, right? Like calling a woman a. You have your team that is 90% black, minus your point guard, right? And then you had Iowa, who's looks like they're all white, maybe except for one or two players, right? It wasn't just basketball. It wasn't just Iowa versus LSU,
Yeah.
right? I know like a large portion, I didn't speak to a ton of people about it actually before the game, but some of my friends, black friends, were like, LSU all the way, right? It's representation. It's years and
Yeah.
years of being mistreated and discrimination. And here's a chance to every time two teams meet or two people meet, like Schmeling and Lewis, right?
Right.
Um, there's so many examples, right? Black quarterbacks, right? And people can't understand why is he rooting because you're rooting for him just because he's black? Yeah, I am. Now you understand the history and the past and the hurt and the damage and the discrimination for years and years and years, and think about that, or try to understand it, right? Same thing with LSU and Iowa, right?
Yeah.
It's a little polarizing, and also the way LSU team is written, people write about them or the media, I guess, and then
Portrays them.
right, and then I read an article about Angel Reese, and there were two women, I think from the UCLA team, who said that Angel Reese is the best teammate ever, and she's an incredible woman. Right now, I also saw Angel Reese during the games, which was like, Angel Reese, that's not okay. Where you're making fun of somebody fouling out and crying, right? And you had and you flopped to get the girl out. Okay, smart or not smart, whatever. But I don't give any sympathy to somebody like that, right? Now that doesn't warrant death threats that she
Right.
received
Right.
allegedly, right? But how did you feel that any of that at all, or did you think about that?
I mean, I definitely saw that. But it was because the coach was white. It didn't make for me. It was kind of like this is more about a clash of personalities, whereas one is more brash and one is more subtle. It's one of the same with the one that's Don Staley too, right? This is the roles are reversed there again, but it feels like one is more, you know, quiet and the other one is more brash, in terms of style. Um, for me, it was more like revenge in terms of, Iowa losing last year and they're kind of the underdog. Even though they're the one seed, it felt like they were the underdog because LSU is the defending champ. That I had more of those vibes for me. But I could see the other way. I could totally see it like um the other way around, but more of an underdog story than for me the race because mostly because Kim is white and not yeah, no. It's hard to put her on team, as you said, closer to Team MAGA than.
I don't know. I've been trying to find, but I hear you, and I understand that point too that you're making, which also makes it a little bit more ironic, right? That these women are applying for this, and she's been called conservative. I
Right,
can't find that proves it,
right,
and I don't know if any of the girls, any of the women on LSU's team are homosexual or not. I don't
right.
know, but
What's the
she,
other? What's the other girl? Haley Van Lith. Yeah, she's. I mean,
yeah,
she's said it too that she gets treated differently because of her skin color. So
she gets treated by whom differently
the fans,
at the LSU fans.
yeah. So she was like, yeah, it's 100% unfair, but part of the game. That's kind of what she said.
It's which also leads to more, I don't know if you want to call it confusion, but just head scratching and question marks when you have this blonde hair white girl, white woman, the point guard, the leader of the team. I don't know if
Right.
she's actually the team, but point guards. I'm making that analogy of the point guard being an extension of the coach and typically the leader on the court, who didn't play very well offensively or defensively in that game. I'm not saying she's a good or bad player. And by the way, she's entered the transfer portal,
Yeah, she did.
and so and from I think did she date? I think she dated Jalen Suggs
Did she?
from the, and I'm not sure who she dated now. Nor do I follow it, but it's interesting that she dated. I'm not surprised that she dated a brother, right? But And I think, now I'm thinking about a different team, but so, for her to say that, and I think she has some awareness, right? And I'm not saying that just because you date somebody of color doesn't mean you can't be racist, but I think for her to make the comment she's treated differently shows that she is just aware of her surroundings
Yeah.
and
It
aware
seems
that
like the basketball players are. I mean, did you? I was watching the repeat of Paige Buchers when she won whatever her SB was it? Yeah, that was cool. Like she was like, "Hey, I just want to highlight black women and all they've done. They're underrepresented in this award." Um, so I think they're more aware than anyone because they're around it and they empathize with it, right? More than any the average person.
when you look at college sports, one of the great things about it, right, is you don't get to determine who's your next who's your teammate,
Right. Right.
right? So that's your family. Like you don't get to pick and choose your family. You don't get to pick and choose your teammates. I mean, I guess you could say I'm not going to that school because I don't want to because I know that jerk. That guy's a jerk, and I know him. Or on my recruiting trip, he wasn't cool. But for the most part, there's 4 or 5 incoming freshmen, and you guys don't know each other previously through AAU or high school. You're coming in to a situation, right, on a team where the coaches have recruited those guys,
Yeah.
and you hope that you get along, right?
Right.
And let's look at UVA's five guys in 2016, right? Mamadi, Jay, Dre, Kyle, and Ty. Dre didn't like Ty. They became roommates, right? Dre was like, "Who is this kid? I don't like this kid," right?
Right.
And of course, they became best friends and remain best friends, which is amazing, right? But you know, if you're black or white or whatever, or Asian or Latinx or whatever you are, indigenous, right? You come to college and you hopefully, as a parent, you hope that that coach is going to be a great mentor
Right.
and create a very healthy culture that your kid is going to feel very comfortable in,
Right.
right? Drop your kid off. And I've had both experiences. I've had great best experiences. I've had a really bad experience with my kid, with one of my kids, right? And so, but that arena is a place where it truly can be an opportunity for integration, for real integration,
Yeah.
right? And that's one of the great things about sports. If not, that's one of the best things about sports. Developing friendships, and your friends could be from a completely different culture. Could be some of the same ones too,
Right.
right? And you kind of navigate and you kind of make develop friendships, right? And organically, it's almost like being born again, right? I mean, your parents aren't around to influence you in your decisions, right? It's you
Right.
on your own. Of course, you can hear them in the back of your head, of course, and they instill values in you. The parents are caregivers, right? But again, I think that's one of the best things about sports.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, when you look at LSU, I think that what people might hear about them, I think people have to just research more and research and until, but people are going to form opinions based on no facts or no data at all,
Right.
always, right? And everybody's going to have an opinion.
Totally.
And of course, I started reading the comments after each article, and it was disgusting. And ask myself why did I read those comments? It's disgusting. It's so freaking disgusting. So, lastly, my thing on LSU is the governor of LSU wants to introduce, I don't know if it's a bill or just eliminate scholarships for people that don't stand for the national anthem. Just making a comment.
That's wild.
Well, he and Trump are buddy buddy, so I'm not surprised.
So he wants to eliminate this. He just wants to rescind the scholarship if you don't stand. Is that what it is?
You don't recognize.
That's wild.
Yep, yep, yep. And he said his mother coached basketball during the desegregation in the South. I think it might have been Louisiana. But it's more important. that people stand up and respect those that serve in the military.
That, yeah, I don't understand it, but whatever. He's got his opinions.
I get it. I get it. Why do you want to see protest and chaos and people not supporting your dream when you basically run the world, run the country, right? When everything's working for you, why would you want to? Why would you want to upset the apple cart?
Yeah,
Right?
it's crazy.
Like, shoot, if I was in that position, I guess. I mean, hey, keep it down, be quiet. I'm good. Don't disrupt me. Don't disrupt my position.
Right.
I'm comfortable. I'm running shit.
It's it to me, the confusion is like, hey, this is a free country, independent free speech, independent thought, all of those things. But you gotta, when we're doing this song, you gotta stand. That just doesn't make sense to me. I never like could connect those dots as to why during the anthem, it just kind of goes against the whole freedom thing, right? Like now you have to do, you're free, but just do what I say. Like what? How? How? How does this work again? Like my definition of freedom is very different from yours, but whatever. But we do it. Like that's just the way it is, right? Like and anyway, it's just something we got to get through, I guess. I think the old
Yeah,
guard, the older guard, and people who served have a much different feeling towards, the national anthem and the flag and all of that stuff because it means something totally different than other people. So,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I can't speak on any of that. It's never occurred to me um to go to war for this country. Like, is it because I feel like a guest here. Like you don't ask your guest to go fight for the country. Like it's not my battle. This is putting it bluntly, but like, hey, treat me like a guest, then you guys go fight. Like I'm staying back. But that's the way it is.
No, I hear you. You've used that term before. You used that. I've heard you make that description before. Feeling like a gift. You're not. You're not alone.
Yeah, I think not. I mean, this country is really blacks and whites. Like it's the history is so deep. It's hard to argue. I mean, even for other people, I know they say everyone's here and it's a free whatever. We're all created equal and da 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 da. But that's just not true. Like the factually is there's a deep history here in America with blacks and whites, and we have to assimilate into that history. Um, so not complaining. It just is what it is. It's like it'd be different for a white person to come to another country. Like you have to deal with when you go to China or Taiwan, you got to deal with their history, right? Like you go to Hong Kong, you got to deal with that history. It's just factual.
Yeah, I mean, I have more thoughts on that for another podcast
Yeah, for sure.
thing because I think that there's been so many military occupations,
Right.
right? And so many imperialism colonizations that have existed around the world from the United States, England, Great Britain, France, right, which are white dominated by white folks. And when they go anyway, we can have another time. I'll stop there. I'll stop there. But I do want to go on to what you were talking about earlier when you started talking about the men's game, right? The women's game. And you're making great points. I agree with all those points. In addition to that, you know, why can't coaches leave? Why can't players? It's true. It's true. But as a purist, the game is not. It's almost like it's not. It's at a low, and maybe an all time low. Right. First of all, there's so many options with overtime, and we talked about this before. But Ignite, which is ending, which is being eliminated by the NBA. Team Ignite. Guys can go overseas, but the best players, not all the best players are going to college. And then in addition to that, guys signing 1 year leases. So while I support everybody trying to get a bag, right, and trying to get a dough, trying to get half a mil or a mil or whatever it might be, basically free agency,
For you.
college basketball and college sports are going to experience free agency, right? It's hurting the game in that there's no cohesion, there's no chemistry developed, which sometimes takes more than a year and 2 years and three
Right.
years, and sometimes like that's why the mid majors can compete. The Oaklands can compete with the Kentuckys, right? The dude, the shooter from Oakland was like what 25,
Yeah.
something like that, right? And some of the other guards, the kid got Rocket. I can't think of his last name. Who was at Michigan State for a while, right?
Yeah.
And transferred in there. But they have older players in there who have been there for a while. And actually, the guy, the 25-year-old, 24, 25, however it was, I think he played D2 for 3 or 4 years and then transferred in. But even still, like your body's different at 25, your mind's different at 25 than it is at 18, 19.
Uh, My argument against that is, doesn't that make for more entertainment come March when you've got this, sort of battle of basically David Goliath kind of feeling, but it's like you got the big bad McDonald's All-Americans getting millions of dollars going up against the, as you said, transferred in from Division 2 and overlooked but 25 and is going to be an accountant, but they played together for 4 years and they're going up against it and they're competing. Like, that's great TV. Like, it's great.
Of it. And that's one of the reasons why I love March Madness. And that's
Yeah,
one of the reasons most people love March Madness. And that's one of the reasons why the pools are everybody's pool
yeah,
is and and everybody's done in their pool after the first weekend, right? 90% of the people have no shot at winning, right? But that's something different than the 1 year leases. And now you have guys jumping from team to team where players aren't developing chemistry on the same team for 2, 3, 4 years, right?
right.
So that's one of the reasons why I love it. But then at the same time, like my son's Kobe's school at Delaware, they I think between the 2 or 3 kids that have graduated, they have 5 or 6 kids that went into the portal.
Yeah,
And it's not just them; it's most kids. The portal is every year,
yeah,
every year gets bigger and bigger.
yeah,
The transfer, and a lot of these guys don't end up anywhere. Right? But now it's different because now they're incentivized by money,
right,
right? And so if I'm a big time player, I mean, I can't criticize them. If I'm at one school and one school's paying me 100 or 200 or 150, and I can go get 3 or 400, who am I to tell somebody they can't do that
right,
just because I want to see better college basketball? Well, doesn't that
right,
make me as as they are? I just think it's impacting the game. I just think I'm seeing like guys not make shots, not play together, just so much more one on one. Guys turning the ball over more than they have in the past. And also, if you're a first year player, freshman, and you have a good season, you're gone. Or even if you don't have a good season, like look at Bronny James. He may be an NBA player. He may become a great NBA player. I don't know. But he had an unremarkable first year.
yeah. He's going to the NBA, right?
I think he averaged 4 or 5 points a game.
Yeah, he did not do much.
I love college basketball. This is the first year I wasn't watching like at least 1, 2 games a night. The first year.
Yeah, we talked about this prior. It definitely, I mean, for the basketball, for the previous fans, I think for the hardcore fans of college basketball on a team, I think it felt watered down and not as interesting. But I think for the casual fan, it was amazing, right? Like ratings were higher than ever. People may not have gathered in Vegas and done the thing, but maybe half of those people are back at home watching in separate TVs, and the ratings go up from that. You weren't making an event out of things, but like I think a lot of people watched. I mean, obviously they did. They said it was the highest rated first round ever. So it's working. Like it's hard to argue. Me and you that previously were like it just didn't feel the same. Like I don't, but maybe everyone's at home individually watching it, and that's great for the game. I have no idea at this point.
So now my question is, because gambling is up so much, how much is that linked to gambling? People watching.
Oh, it's got. I mean, well, to be frank,
I'm not
March
just talking
Madness.
about in your office pool. I'm talking about FanDuel
Yeah,
and the other one.
it's got to have an impact. Like now everyone's used to odds and money lines and this and that. So I imagine that's a big impact on why people are watching. But people have always gambled on March Madness, so it's probably irrelevant in the big
But
scheme.
they're not gambling. They haven't gambled on player props that they're gambling.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And now guys aren't getting the guys are getting death threats, right? They're being inboxed with death threats because they didn't hit their player prop.
That's just crazy. I mean, I think the death threats is kind of overblown, but maybe it's happening. I don't know. I don't know what type of human being sends a child a death threat over your bet. That's just doesn't make sense.
He got one. Armando Baycott said he got some.
Yeah, yeah, maybe, but it could be one of those things like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, man. Like you're killing me, like one of those, hyperbolic situations. But maybe I don't know. People are insane. I have no idea.
And but if I lose $1,000 or 1,500 or $10,000
Right,
because you didn't get 6 rebounds because you couldn't, you idiot, dumb, every other word in the book, couldn't get 6 rebounds. Well, how about you're the idiot that gambled
right. You're gambling on it, so
and gambling so much money, not because you researched, right, and really, I guess, investigated and looked up data but because you had a feeling and a thought and a hunch that someone was going to win the game. But
right,
whether you did or not, I mean, even still to attack a kid or attack anybody because you did something that you shouldn't be doing, especially if you don't have the money to be doing it.
right.
And now you're in a position, you're in a
Now you're
situation where,
mad.
like, right now you're mad. Yeah.
No, totally.
Well, we've got to talk about the darlings of the NCAA real quickly.
Yeah,
And
let's
see,
do it.
Big Daddy Burns, he is like, I'm happy for
America's
the.
America's darling. Which
I'm
all
so
it all started from UVA, them beating UVA, and now they're on this epic run. So like,
if UVA had 3 fouls to give or 2 fouls to give, would have fouled Mikey O'Connell at half court twice.
this whole
There's
thing
no
doesn't happen.
he it's NC State's maybe playing in the NIT.
Yep.
They're not going to the NCAA tournament.
I mean, you think, we had a best free throw shooter McNeely on the line, up three, 5 seconds left. You make one, it's over. But the ball bounces this way, and then that's what I think that's what you're talking about. The game isn't, um, you know, it's a little more, I don't know, fallible is the right term, but it seems like any team can win because there aren't great teams anymore that stay together and have elite talent. Like elite talent leaves, which makes everything a little more muddy and a little more parity, which maybe makes for better TV at the end of the day. Like people argue and complain that it's ruining the game, and then this happens and people rally around the underdog stories. It feels like we're ripe for a mid-major or something like this to win it all. It hasn't happened yet. But like because of these rules and these things, I feel like it gives them a better chance for March Madness anyway.
Which leads me to believe, with the ratings being so high and the product not being so great, that gambling is really, really having an impact.
Yeah, for
More
sure.
than we even think. I
I mean,
think
I've always wondered, like, because ultimately it's this if you're a casual fan of the game and you're not into it like we are, and regardless of whoever is playing, you're gonna come in and watch. Doesn't matter what the game actually looks like. It's more of the, you know, drama of it all. You're just gonna tune in. If it's a bunch of intramural guys, but it's on TV and everyone's watching and the level is lower, I don't know how much of a hit ratings take if you do all the other stuff right. You tell the stories, you do all the marketing. I don't know how big of a hit it takes at the end of the day, which is kind of scary, right? If you put out a bunch of intramural players, and you have the right storylines and people learn about them and the basketball's decent, it might still get good ratings, sadly. So I don't even know if you need a overtime elite and you need NBA lottery talent in this thing.
Clearly, you don't. $12 billion was gambled in March Madness in 23.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you know, the alumni of all these schools are for sure watching. Doesn't matter who's if they've eligible or transferred or NIL, whatever, they have rooting interest. So it's just the casual fans, I don't think at this point care. They see 11, they see NC State, they see guys that are relatable, they're gonna watch. Like it's not about sadly, I think the diehards like us are getting phased out and
Oh, I'm going to watch the Final Four
I'm
because,
watching it too, yeah, for sure.
yeah, and Coach Mikey O'Connell, right?
It makes me think of like the movie industry where the the hardcore movie story fans of stories and games, I mean of real directors and movies have taken a back seat to internationalization and money. Like it's the same thing. It's harder to tell a story and tell it the way they want to because now they've got to make it for an international audience and they've got to make it relatable and they've got to make it translatable into all these different things and different formats. So a lot of the directors I've heard this is like, hey man, the art of making movies is dead because now it's about the masses, right? Like, I can't tell the story the way I want to. I have to tell the way people think they want them, which kind of is happening here too, right? It's like because of this, transfers and people doing, it's creating this thing that makes appeal for everyone, but the hardcore people don't love it as much, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's entertainment.
Who are you rooting for this weekend?
I think selfishly, I'm rooting for anyone but Purdue. I want UVA to be the only one to go 16 to win it all, which is really weird. But like when I watch Purdue, I want them to win. It's weird. It's very bizarre. Like I was like, oh, I definitely want Purdue not to make it. So Virginia is the
I
only
agree.
team.
Yep.
And then I sat there and cheered for them against whoever it was the other, I'm like, all right. But clearly my heart and my mind are in different places, but I guess NC State. How can you not root for NC State? Although they're an ACC team, I don't know. If they beat Purdue, I don't know how I'll feel, but it is what it is.
No, I agree. Well, but they could beat Purdue and Purdue could win, but most likely Connecticut's going to be whomever anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. UConn is just so dominant.
Yeah, they really
They've got
do.
a great mix of what we're talking. They're what you're talking about. They're the mix of like, hey, a bunch of guys together for a long time, and then they add in, you know, great elite young talent that meshes, and they've got it going, man. It's hard to argue. They've get on the Vegas terms, they've covered every game for the last 2 years. Somebody said if you had put $100 in the first game and just let it ride, it's over at this point, it's over $1 million you'd have.
No way.
Yeah, if you just took from last year through to this year,
Oh, okay.
if you took every UConn game and then you just let it ride over and over and over, it's
Yeah, but
great.
they would have lost. There's a
No,
couple of games they this year. You
no,
should
no,
talk
no,
about
no.
the.
I'm just talking about in the tournament, in the
Yeah.
NCAA tournaments. It's something like I don't know what it is, but I think there was a number on NC State too, If you took them through this run, $100, you'd have $160,000. Crazy.
Money line or with the
I
point?
think just with points. Or, yeah, I think with points. If you just took them every game.
All right, confession, by the way. While we're basically denouncing gambling, I did make a $10 bet that the NC State men's and women's team would win.
Oh, wow.
I think it gets me a grand.
That's awesome. That's a crazy bet. I
The
do
ten
have
dollars.
NC State in my Final Four, though. I got 3 out of 4 this year, first time ever.
NC State to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, I had NC State, Purdue, UConn, and I had St. Mary's as my fourth. But I got 3 out of 4. Not bad.
Can I hire you to pick my bowl next year?
Please don't, because I'm terrible. In most cases, I don't have anything right. I mean, usually I take a flyer or two. So, I kind of just go by whatever. So St. Mary's,
So who do you
lost to
have in the
Grand
final
Canyon. I have Purdue and
and who winning?
UConn.
Yeah. Well, you know who I think the best prognosticator is Jay Billis.
Yeah.
I have all his experts on TV. He seems to be the guy that gets it right the
Yeah,
most.
he's good. I mean, it's hard to get this thing right. Let's keep it like on that note, I always said it's impossible to be a college basketball expert. It's too many teams. Like, how could you know Grand Canyon's like in their game plan? Like, truly, you're doing the research the night before, right? You cover them. Maybe you cover one game, you do the thing, they get ranked, you do some research. At the end of the year, 68 teams in here, there's no chance you've watched all of them multiple times and know the ins and outs. It's impossible. You can maybe do a conference if that's your full-time job, but to be a national basketball analyst is basically a casual fan. At that point, you're watching the top 10 teams. Like,
Who the hell picked McNeese State?
right,
Like, watch them,
right.
right? Who watched? I mean, St. Mary's is on TV sometimes, so maybe you watch them, and they were good this year. They smacked Gonzaga.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I picked them in the Final Four. I was like, all right, I've seen them like a handful of times. They're really good.
I think I had them going too late in one of my pools. And
But I
but
didn't
you're
know Grand Canyon would be such a disaster of a matchup for them. Like those guys were frenetically playing. Like that was the exact opposite of what St. Mary's can go up against, which is like super long, athletic, like frenetic pace. Like they couldn't do that.
who would they lose to in a really close game? Was it Alabama?
Who's that
Or
same? Oh, Grand Canyon. Yeah,
that was a crazy game.
that was a great game. I mean,
Crazy.
horrible in what you said in terms of turnovers and basketball, but just watching it, it was just like crazy turnovers and yeah, it was wild. Anyway,
So much fun. One was such a frenetic pace.
for sure.
Um,
All right,
and
next week. Next week,
who
what
do
are
you
we talking?
have,
Sorry, go ahead.
who do you have for the women winning real quick?
I'm hoping it's Iowa or versus South Carolina.
You're not going with Dawn Staley, huh?
No, she's already won so many. I kind of want to see this Caitlin Clark thing all the way through. I don't know why. I have no rooting interest for Caitlin Clark, but it's like,
She's so good.
yeah, she's just like amazing. I like to see her go take it all the way to the end for whatever reason, because I feel like Don's they want it already. Um, to have her get to the championship, Don versus Caitlin Clark would be fun. I don't, I'm just watching for entertainment value. I'm not even trying to root for anybody because like UConn is always winning too. So I just like the idea of the underdog, but they're the 1 seed, so they're not really an underdog. But seeing them come through with it would be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely want them to win tonight because I want to see Caitlin in the finals. Like what happens after that, I really honestly care, but
Yeah. No, it'd be make it for much better drama for TV.
for sure the refs gotta the word has got to be out. We need Iowa to win this game.
this isn't major. This is revolutionary for college, but
Yeah,
women's college basketball.
for all
Right
of
there.
basketball. Yeah, we need them.
Right. That's
Uh,
funny. Next week, what were we saying?
I was saying next week we can talk about the ending of these games, whatever news comes out, NIL transfer news.
We'll have two new champions, new NCAA champions,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
and hopefully no more earthquakes in New York City or
No more
anywhere.
earthquakes. Yeah, let's hope.
All
All
right, it
right
was
then.
fun.
Yep, we'll talk soon.